Hi, I'm David King-Lassman, and this is ExploreXR. And today I'm absolutely delighted and rather honored to be joined by Sean Graglia. Sean, I didn't check. It is Graglia, right?
Graglia, it is.
Graglia.
It's actually, didn't learn about the pronunciation until I actually reached out on the internet and found out how it's supposed to be said. So thank you. You did well.
Thank goodness. Phew. So let's kick off. Just a quick introduction, Sean. Tell the audience a little bit about you.
Sure. Well, I'll give you the same icebreaker that I like to give folks when I just meet them. These are my first 3 jobs: Radio Shack Canada, Nortel Networks, and Blockbuster Canada. What's common among all 3?
Go on.
They're all bankrupt. So you can decide whether that was because I was there or I left and they didn't survive. Microsoft, I've been here for 17 years. So I think there's some good background there.
Well, I'm guessing though, because we've had a number of interactions and you're incredibly personable and enthusiastic and dynamic. I'm guessing you learned those skills at Blockbuster, dealing with people coming in asking what films to rent.
It was film is a passion, movies are a passion. I like to share with the folks that I mentor, and when you've had a long career, I like being able to do that. A lot of the skills I've learned are actually being in front of people in retail and from Radio Shack all the way through to Blockbuster. And those skills of listening and being able to respond, and I'm sure you found this is building your business, is how you build solutions, being able to listen and empathize with the people that you're working with.
I think that's a great point. And if anybody that's out there is listening who has entrepreneurial spirit, I'd say that's lesson number 1, right? Listen, it's absolutely vital. So I guess the transition from Blockbuster to Microsoft, that's quite an interesting move. How did that come about?
Well, interesting. It's funny, I went to school a long time ago for IT and marketing. And I had spent 10 years in IT and always wanted to flex the marketing muscle. And so an opportunity came at Microsoft. And of course, growing up and watching Microsoft build an industry and enable partners like yourselves to build solutions that solve even greater challenges, that's something I wanted to do. So a job happened to be available that mixed my skill set. And I encourage people to actually put their resume in the systems and actually just look and scan it and find that role. And from there, and I know we didn't mean to have a career advice session, but I was just recently recording this for my my colleagues. Is really sharing that plan with them and actually having someone bet on you. So someone bet on me, and I moved into marketing, and kind of the rest is history.
That's amazing. And of course, you have been at Microsoft a long, long time. When mixed reality wasn't even a glint in somebody's eye, right? So just share some of the experiences that you've had. It must have been quite a ride, right? So which areas of the organization were you involved in?
It has been a ride. It's 17 years and 7 roles. And I calculated the other day, 10 countries and 20 cities. So it's been an incredible ride. It started out, and this was a natural evolution from a technical IT portion, is helping marketing strengthen how they measure return on investment. And that was the first thing, to make sure that we were going in the right direction. From that, learning the business of Microsoft and moving into actually marketing. And that's where you're getting into working with customers and partners, working on traditional marketing and outreaches and events and things like that. And then the other career path is to product marketing management, which is really about helping the market understand what solutions are out there and what the match is to their needs. And so working with a partner like GigXR is a huge desire and reward to be able to make those connections. So I've done product marketing management for, I guess I must like it, for about a dozen years, just because of how I can see the connection between the value that we're trying to build and the customers that they get. So that's been about the transition so far up to mixed reality.
Okay, and anybody listening with a keen ear will note that you have a slight lilt in your accent, which gives your location away. You are, of course, a Canadian. I know that you're based in Toronto, which is one of my favorite cities on earth, right? You say that your journey has taken you into 10 countries. And that's quite unusual for a lot of people. You know, most people will stay where they're based, or maybe move a little distance, but to travel like that, how's that helped you in thinking about how different areas of the world approach business?
And I'll also clarify, I have always lived in the Greater Toronto area. Never really wanted to leave my family, but the benefit of being at a company like Microsoft is being able to visit all those countries.
Right.
And what's remarkable, David, is the same challenges that we have and we're facing and we're trying to help the healthcare industry are experienced in all those other countries. And when we get together, it doesn't matter if you're halfway around the world, we face those same challenges. Patient care and the advancement of it is very similar across. It's just, as you probably found, it's at different stages of the ability to leverage the type of technology we have. But that's been one of the things that's really hit me across the world.
Right. And of course, one could be forgiven for thinking that when you're a company the size of Microsoft, if you launch a new product line, that it's going to be much, much easier because you've got such a big machine at your back. But presumably, even for Microsoft, when you're bringing a technology or a software platform to market that is, you know, really groundbreaking and doing something new, that comes with the same sort of challenges, no matter whether you're big or small. And Microsoft has traditionally been at the forefront of technical innovation. So how do you think about that? You know, because you're marketing stuff that people don't know they need yet, right?
It's so true. It's Microsoft, by the nature, it is an engineering company. So coming up with technology that solves challenges that we don't even know about. I like to refer particularly to mixed reality and, of course, HoloLens as a startup. And that's the way I think about it. And it's a startup within a large, mature machine that has mature ways of execution. And so we need to think more like a startup, and we need to keep our partners like GigXR closer to build those solutions that are very specific to the industries and go to market together and build the business and then drive that awareness. Even though Microsoft has a lot of muscle behind it in terms of being able to reach people around the world, there's so much information in the world, sometimes it's hard to rise on top. So when we run into stories that carry with mixed reality, especially with the current discussions going on, it's really piquing interest, and a lot more people are paying attention to those. So
let's get into a little bit of the detail of what you're doing currently, Sean. So you're based in Toronto. Describe your job today for Microsoft.
My job is very exciting. Leading the mixed reality business for Canada is all about helping Canadians understand what the value is already from mixed reality. A lot of people might actually take a look at the news or what they're reading online and think this is something far in the future. And you and I both know, no, this is here now. So telling those stories is an important part and a big part of my job in doing that. And then really getting on calls with customers and with partners like yourself and being able to share those stories and help them understand you don't want to wait. The technology is ready now. And so we spend a lot of time in doing that, and that marketing and storytelling is a big piece of what we're doing today.
And what are some of the tenets of that storytelling process? Because you must really try to focus on the value proposition. What do you tell people who perhaps don't know much about mixed reality?
That's a good point. I tend to explain a little bit about what mixed reality is because there's so many different definitions. And actually, Microsoft didn't come up with mixed reality. That was a research paper that was done many, many years ago. And so I like to level the set of, think of virtual reality, think of putting on a headset and being fully immersed. And you see that often in games. And then when you think about augmented reality, think about driving a car these days and having the vehicle tell you what speed they're at. Mm-hmm. When you think about mixed reality, it's about interacting with holograms and other people. And so it's much more immersive. So I kind of level set on that. And then as far as telling the stories go, it's storytelling is one of those things that will help anyone get their point across. No matter what area of business they're in. And so sometimes it's an emotional storytelling. So I'll just give one in Canada that I'm proud of and that's unrelated to your side of the business. But for the Canadians, I asked them to take a look at the back of a $5 bill. And on that bill is a spaceman on the end of an arm. And a solution that was built on HoloLens is actually visualizing the telemetry and the space operations on the International Space Station, as well as training astronauts and ground control on being able to manipulate that arm. And that Canadarm was just awarded again to MDA, who will no doubt leverage this type of technology. So telling that story and making it important to the people thinking at the other end, and then relating them to this. So maybe you aren't visualizing data, maybe it's that you're visualizing an operation. Maybe you need to see what maybe the patient needs to actually see what that looks like to them so that they can internalize it and know why they need to take their medicine. And then on the training side, we want safety as we deliver healthcare. And so when we think about training someone in using a medical device, or even in using medical procedures, there's an opportunity there. So when we think of the training side as well, and trying to relate that story to whoever the audience is, I find that works effectively.
Right. And presumably you're talking to a lot of institutions that are very familiar with virtual reality. Do you find that educating people into the mixed reality paradigm away from virtual reality is challenging? Do you get pushback because people say, oh, I've tried VR and I don't like it, or I've tried VR and this is what I really, really like about it, and I'm not sure I can do it in mixed reality? How's that conversation going for you?
It's a great question, David. What I'm finding, the other element to it is, depending on when they experienced it, they'll have a completely different experience. So if they tried virtual or augmented reality or even mixed reality 5 years ago, today is a completely different experience. So sometimes I educate them on what the changes are and the improvements. And you tend to hear, virtual reality, for example, people getting ill because they can't see anything around them and they're in this virtual environment. And so that's one of the points about mixed reality and with the HoloLens, is that you're able to see the environment. There's no risk of moving around. It feels natural, and then to actually see that digital person in front of you and actually interact with the data is a lot more natural. So these are things that folks just don't recognize. And as you point out, in the education space, the ability to retain information with your immersive learning is a huge benefit. So I see this as a growing area.
Right. And you mentioned that great use case with the astronaut. Can you talk about some of the other examples of how Canada is deploying mixed reality within your sphere of influence?
Sure. I'll give you another healthcare example where in order to drive patient outcomes, but then improve safety, and they'd be able to tap into specialists that you don't necessarily want to put in the same room. We had a hospital in Montreal that actually used HoloLens and achieved remote specialist engagement. And how it works is we put on the device, and I don't know if this will come through, but they'll put on the device as a practitioner, and they'll actually set up in PPE. So you only got one person that has to set up on that. And they'll actually go down the ward, and they'll visit the patient, and they may come across, and a ventilator is a great example, where complex piece of machinery, they may not know everything. In any of those steps, they'll be able to phone in a friend through HoloLens, through, in this case, Dynamics 365 Remote Assist, to be able to contact that specialist to consult on what they're seeing, or actually to get guidance in the ventilator. So that scenario was actually in the hospital, Jewish General Hospital in Montreal. That's a healthcare example, and I've got other examples in automotive and other examples in manufacturing. So it's multi-industry impactful, and it's amazing to see how it's being adapted.
Yeah, I mean that phone a friend metaphor, I think is a great one to use about mixed reality, because for people that haven't used a mixed reality device, you can put on the device and you see what somebody is seeing in real time, potentially on the other side of the world. And we know that in healthcare, that's wildly exciting, because if you think about medical practitioners, doctors who are having to make a life and death decision, and they need that kind of experience advice, they can literally have someone give it to them in real time, in a way that, I mean, it's unprecedented, isn't it? I can't think of any other technology that allows you to do that quite so effectively.
It's been amazing. And, it went back to earlier, we were talking about Microsoft being an engineering company. So they come out with the building blocks, the Lego blocks, and we don't necessarily know what's going to be built on them. And then a company like GigXR comes along and builds that solution. and drives these kind of outcomes. And so while something wasn't designed as a medical device, the HoloLens 2, it's still enabling medical outcomes. And it's just amazing to see.
Yeah, we're seeing it on a day-to-day basis, and it is incredible. And of course, for us, the customers that we're engaging with are being incredibly impactful. Going back to what you said right at the beginning of listening, we listen to them and they tell us how this emerging technology needs to shape their destiny. And I think the other point that you raised, I think, which is worth reiterating, is this ability to be able to try in a safe to fail environment again and again and again. I mean, that must be super impactful in the areas that you're dealing with, I would have thought.
For sure. In many cases with the mixed reality solution, being able to do it in a safe environment, practicing on whether it be in healthcare, but on mannequins or in advance of cadavers. I mean, one of the benefits, we can actually have the cost savings and being able to learn and experiment without having the cost of bringing in other apparatus. And almost every day, I'm hearing more and more applications come up. I was on the phone the other day with a children's hospital, and the anesthesiologist was talking to me about, Sean, when we're with a patient, we want to be able to visualize the information and not take us away. They didn't want to turn their head and then turn it back to the patient. So it's just all these use cases keep coming up, and I think that's only going to continue and accelerate and really solve problems that we haven't even thought of today.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great point, Sean. So I also don't want to put you too much on the spot, but some people I think might feel a little bit of surprise that Microsoft went into this market. Yes, Microsoft, primarily a software company, but they have built some hardware. Of course, notably the Xbox, I suspect, is one of the most successful pieces of hardware that Microsoft has built. The mixed reality device, the HoloLens, some people are like, what's behind that? What's the thinking? Can you talk a little bit about why you think, and you may know the party line, or this might just be conjecture on your part, what do you think appealed about this medium that caused Microsoft to invest so substantially and heavily in it?
Thank you for the question. It's, even when you back, and I'll back up to the early days, there's certainly a sense that this is a new solution, a new technology that will enable new solutions. And you can go all the way back to the Kinect, that one of the fastest consumer selling technical devices the world has ever seen. And so that enabled a new interaction with software and with other people, that there was a fire lit back then. And of course, as you point out, Xbox being hardware and Surface. So Microsoft has built a history of successful delivery of devices, and we continue to do that with the HoloLens. And so when we looked at the potential benefits from what this new technology would enable, it was just a logical transition to move from Kinect on the Xbox to Kinect, a device that would empower mixed reality, and then similar technology and much more advanced to be able to wear on the head and be able to interact in an untethered way. So we had the engineering, we had the software, and uniquely, we have the cloud services in Azure. So to put all that together, we knew we had a winning formula, and that's why we continue to invest in mixed reality. Yeah,
and of course, I guess with the advent of 5G and faster delivery, that's going to become more and more to the fore, isn't it? When we can start to stream complex holographic content to devices with almost no latency, the imagination runs wild with what we can achieve with that, right?
It does. It's the excitement that I sense around, particularly the telecom service providers, in understanding, now that we have all of this capacity, how do we utilize it? And it's funny you should mention, because I was just on a call recently with one of my folks in the field, and we were a little bit lamenting that we actually didn't have a 5G hotspot that would enable HoloLens to be able to do its services. Because of course it needs that internet connection to be able to phone in that friend. So I agree with you. And when the more data you throw down, particularly HoloLens will about 300,000 polygons is about the limit of HoloLens. So to explain that in English, it's kind of muted. It's kind of, you see enough of the detail to understand what's going on, but not in the nth level of detail. And so when we stream that from a cloud services and we stream that through 5G, it just opens up the doors for amazing solutions.
Yeah, I know from Gig's point of view, you know, that's going to be extremely exciting when we start to stream because you can achieve that greater fidelity. And in healthcare training, you know, the more realistic you can get, the better. And in fact, one of the reasons I think we're doing well is that we're able, despite those limitations that you described, Sean, to present content that is so hyper-realistic and, you know, to unprecedented levels. You know, going back to VR, often it looks a little bit, you know, cartoony, a bit gamey, but actually we can now place someone in a room that it looks real. It looks amazing. And again, thinking about the opportunities of how you can use that, it must be extremely exciting. I dare say you enjoy getting up to go to work in the morning.
I do, and you reminded me another, as you know, I like showing off your solution. And one of the, I can relate it actually to, earlier I was talking about MDA, the space technology company in Canada, where we can visualize what's happening on the ISS. And the one thing one of the trainers said is, Sean, we find this reduces the shock and awe of the astronaut actually being in outer space because we're able to experience it. Well, I think the same sort of thing happens with GigXR solutions in that I'm experiencing this training and I see someone in front of me that's realistic enough for me to get a little bit used to that. So I would imagine when I'm actually in that position, I'm a little bit more comfortable and I retain that knowledge. So a very good point.
Yeah. So let's put our kind of imagination hats on here for a moment. I always like to ask this question of people that are involved in this industry. Where do you think mixed reality is going to take us over the next sort of 12 to 24 months? But then, you know, blue sky, you know, what do you think we're going to be doing years from now with this technology? You know, again, I come back to the fact that I've had conversations with people who said, oh, it's a flash in the pan, it's going to go away. But I think all the indicators are pointing to the fact that this is here to stay. You know, we are the providers of the metaverse. If you think, you know, you build the tools, we build the solutions, and many companies like us. So this isn't going anywhere anytime soon, right? And it's only going to get bigger and better and more exciting and more science fiction. So what goes on in your head when you start looking to the future, Sean?
You know, it's funny, David, I think all of us involved in this business, we're all passionate about it because we believe and we know what's going to happen out of the future. So I'll take the big, what does the big picture look like? And of course, being a sci-fi fan, you have the vision of it. Here's how I want my life to lead. But there are many indicators that people want to be able to have this augmented and mixed reality experience. And, you know, think about phones. When back in the 80s, we didn't have smartphones. And it's just 20 years later, they started to become, 25, let's say later, from the 80s. It's indispensable now. It's everyone is using it. And so I know we're going to get to that point where we'll have multitudes of devices and apps and services, but it will become part of our everyday life. That's the journey we're going to go on, and we'll benefit from it because of the new solutions that it solves. So that's multi-years into the future. Over the next few years, really, we built so much value and capability into HoloLens in particular. Next couple of years are really about sharing what's already available in terms of value and being able to tell that story and let other people know that this way you're working can be a lot more efficient. You can learn a lot faster. You can execute with more safety, getting that message out over the next couple of years. And then, of course, collaboration will be another big piece that will evolve over the next couple of years, and being able to collaborate in that mixed reality space. So that's kind of how I'm seeing things. It's a very exciting area, and I love being in it.
Yeah, no, I think the collaboration, again, is a brilliant point. You know, if we think about, say the Web 1.0, you know, it was really driven by technical innovators, right? And then suddenly we give people the tools, lay people, to come up with brilliant ideas and execute, you know, apps on a phone, whatever it might be. And certainly, you know, collaboration is very important strategically to us. You know, we're working with great institutions like Cambridge, like Michigan, because they're bringing all this subject matter expertise. But, you know, you guys are bringing the kind of vision to be able to think imaginatively and creatively to bring applications to the market that are actually going to drive value. And that's something that, you know, massively excites me, is tools developed to make it easier to create this content for mixed reality deployment. I think that's going to be transformative. So you're going to be in mixed reality for a while, Sean, I dare say.
I sure hope so. I love the journey we're on. Absolutely passionate and believe it. And there's so much value to uncover with people, and I just want to stay on that train.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to leave you with one question. I'm going to throw you a curveball, right? In the time you were working at Blockbuster, and we all did this once in our lives, where we had a rental and the film was so good that we just forgot to take it back. What would have been that one film that you wouldn't have taken back to Blockbuster?
Let's see, because I insisted on keeping it. You know what? I was a big Matrix fan, and that was around the time that I was there. So I probably would have kept that. But you know, one thing I learned from Blockbuster is how hard it is to make a quality movie. And one of the big learnings I walked away from: if you're experiencing a movie and you don't like it, and you're 30 minutes in, don't go. Don't keep going. Stop it. Save your time. Do something more valuable.
That's a great way to end the podcast, Sean. Life is short. Enjoy it to the full. Make the most of it. As always, it's a pleasure talking with you, sir, and I look forward to a long and prosperous future of working with you guys and your team.
As do I, David. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm David King-Lassman. This is ExploreXR. Thank you, everyone.